Okay, so we're moving to elections. A lot of people are amazed. We get the question like, what do you do for the next 4 years? The state schedules 4 elections every year. They're in March, May, September, and November. It doesn't mean we're definitely going to carry out an election, but those are the normal dates that give districts the opportunity to put measures on the ballot. Mays and Novembers are usually where you see your initiatives and referendums. So, you know, there is always 4. There can be more. A recall election does not ever follow any of those 4 election dates. They have their own set timeline, and it's a very quick timeline. So it's something you have to really keep on top of. Normally, once we close an election cycle and the filing period has ended, it's like 45 days before you send the ballots. Well, you have to carry out the election within 35 days. So it's a whole different timeline that you have to move very quickly on and be prepared ahead of time. So Coos County has had plenty of recalls. So with that, there's always deadlines that we have for each election. We watch those very closely. Anything to do with elections is full of deadlines. You have to be very organized to keep on top of it. The county clerk is the filing officer for all districts. We're the filing officer for any county positions or measures, and the cities are the filing officer for their candidates and their measures, and then they just certify them to us. So kind of just a general information on the elections. So with elections, the next part I have is election security. A lot of people do not realize that there's a lot that goes into elections security, and that is a very hot topic these days. Every year, each election office is required to file an election security plan with the Secretary of State. So by January 31st, you have to put that document together. This is a confidential document that is not open for public review. You have to be very careful what you disclose to the public in that security plan. And until the state receives that plan, reviews it, and approves it, then you're not eligible to do what we call early scanning of ballots, which start 7 days prior to an election. So they have to give us written approval of our plan. Anytime changes are made in what you do in your processes, possibly even the documents you use, then you have to update that with the Secretary of State and then wait for your approval. Okay, so that election security plan covers things from the beginning of an election to the end. It covers things as far as the courthouse building security, our cyber security, the security during the creation of an election and ballots, the printing and transportation of ballot materials, our drop sites, all the keys involved in any process we do, our tally system, the observers we have, election reporting, the retention and storage of our election documents. So it's pretty in-depth document that everybody has to put together and do. So it's not that we don't like to share all the security issues that we go through. We have to, I mean, it's like we can tell them what software I use for programming our election, but I can't tell them the version, for instance. That gives the public or whomever that may be out there wanting to try to do something more information than you can trust them to have. unfortunately, you know. So, I mean, it's all about securing the process and making sure we're secure. I can guarantee you our system is not connected to the internet for programming an election. OCDR is owned by the state. They have their servers in 2 different locations, which it's always duplicating everything that we do in voter reg. So if one site was to go down, they'd already have a backup. Our computers are hooked to the network, but again, there's nothing actually on our computers. And in Coos County, since we've went with Oregon Centralized Voter Registration in 2005, we don't do email, we don't do pull up a Word document. There's nothing we do on those computers. They're dedicated totally for voter registration. So we feel that's very secure. We bought computers for the other full-time staff to use for their Word documents or whatever else they need to do, where we hooked up to our web pages and you know, post things to the website or whatever else. So we keep our standalone systems very secure. Any questions on that so far? Yes.
I had a question regarding I'm concerned about slowing down the national effort to slow down the mail system and to disallow overtime for U.S. postal employees and the effect of that on Oregon's vote by mail.
Okay, I will be covering that later, but we have never seen it affect anything whatsoever with our mail. We are in contact with Portland Post Office, one of the head guys. We have a direct number and email. We don't go through any second. We have the main contact. We constantly have, during election cycles, we have constant conversations, Zoom meetings, or whatever we need to do so that the processes are done. They always know all of our mail dates. They know when we're going to be dropping our ballots, when the dates they need to get them back. If I have any trouble with any address issues, then I can contact them directly and they're going to resolve that immediately. They go way above and beyond for the election world. We've got a great partnership, and like I said, I've been working with the same guy, and I usually like to work local because stepping on toes is not good for anyone. But if I can't get a hold of a postmaster or work with them, I do have this other contact and I will use it because my process has to go on. And I've got to get those ballots to a voter. And so I'll do what I need to do to make that happen. And I think they all understand that. But usually the postmasters are great working with me. And like I said, they know the importance and they're directed to make sure that everything is done very quick and promptly. The ballots I usually mail on Thursday. We know that the majority of the people are already getting the ballots on Friday. Yes.
Understanding the need for a certain level of secrecy around ballot security and security of the voting process, has there been any discussion statewide about what you can disclose that would reassure some people? Because it seems like the whole process of processing and counting votes is very much a black box to many people. And into that void comes a lot of misinformation. So is it possible to put out a certain level of reassuring information without giving away the store?
Well, I will say in the past, the Secretary of State's office has put out a lot of, I think they're called YouTube videos about the processes and what we do. Some of the larger counties that have a lot of money, which I'm never going to have, also can put together some videos that are educational, and they're pretty easy to find on the website, you know, on the internet. I hope in the future, I don't know how many of you guys go to the website for the county, but I'm going to be showing you that later. I think it was last week, nope, it was on the 16th, we launched a new website. I'm hoping as we get more updated technology that if the state does any of those videos, then I'm able to maybe post those on my website where people can click on them. But again, security, you got to make sure everything's clean and you're not going to take something down by putting some of those links on your website.
Maybe, I mean, if there are approved YouTube videos, maybe we could cross-link to them on Vote 411 and, you know, to drive people in the direction of the approved videos.
Yeah, since they belong to the state, that would probably be a great contact. As you guys know, we don't currently have a real election director at the state right now, or a deputy election director. We have a temporary interim one, but you know, there'll probably be a lot of changes, and I'm sure they want to get the information out, and they probably would be willing to give you those links. Right now, I don't currently have any. Yes, Lois?
Yeah, it is unmuted. There's a Salon article today that says that there are 253 voter suppression restrictive bills in 43 states. And it's a coordinated effort. And I'm just curious if there have been any recent efforts in Oregon to make vote by mail more difficult, to suppress the vote.
I have not heard of any, no. The only thing that I've heard is going to make it easier for the voter. I'm not on the legislative team, so I haven't been following. I can't make every one of the calls. I listen, unless you're on the committee, you just basically listen. So I've been listening to some of them. And for instance, one thing they're looking at is postmarks. There's 3 bills out there for postmarks. One of them I happen not to like, but it's to do with the cost. There's a little verbiage in it that for my county would be very, very difficult, and I would like them not to pick that version because it's just gonna make it very difficult for my county. What it does is it makes, if they go with postmarks, it makes you each election print your envelopes just for that election. So you have to put a specific date as the last date that you can mail your ballot, for instance. Well, I have to buy in quantity because I'm a smaller county in order to get things reasonable for the amount of money I have to spend. So I may buy envelopes for 2 or 3 elections. Well, I'm not going to know what that date is until I get into the election. So that would eliminate that. So the cost of my envelopes would go up drastically. I would like to have something more said like, you have to mail it by the Saturday before the election, something more generic. I'm not against postmarks. I'm against making it, limiting it, so counties that are small, that have got limited funds, will not go broke trying to carry out the election because the state does not pay for the election. So, you know, but I do think postmarks in the future will be accepted. Whether it happens this legislative session or not, I don't know that. But I do see that in the future, and that makes it where they're figuring those people that are waiting too late, at towards the end to mail their ballots and stuff, it'll make it where we can still count those. But, there'll be a lot of things, a lot of laws that have to change. The one thing about elections, it's not just one law. It may affect 50 other places. So you really have to put a lot of time and thought into how does this affect each and every other part of the process that you do. And I think it can be worked out. Washington does it. I just don't want to have to print that specific date on my envelope. Okay, there's my envelope. Okay, there was a lot of questions and concerns about the envelope. I guess it wasn't just my county, it happened in other counties. We do have a pink stripe. We used to have green, but the post office has changed their equipment. When we went to this envelope, which has to be approved by the USPS, we changed our envelope when prepaid postage was approved by the legislators. So now the envelope had to be on the opposite side, which has a prepaid postage permit on there that the state pays for. That meant we had to redesign our envelopes. The post office came back to us and said, you can't use, I don't know what other colors, I used green. Green was disallowed. It's because something in their mail, I don't know, certified, registered, something, had that green color on it and it confused them. So we was given a list of colors we could have available. I contacted the counties around me and I picked a color that was not the same as the counties. Originally, I picked a yellowish gold color, but then as soon as I got my tax envelope, I noticed that's the color they use. So I went away from that because I want people to look and notice that pink and kind of come to know it. We probably, as far as I know, will never change that pink stripe. And the post office knows at a quick glance that those are Coos County ballots. So it's for postal purposes, the little pink stripes on there. Every ballot envelope I order for Coos County has those pink stripes on there now, because that's the envelope that has been approved by the USPS, and it's quite a process to go through to get an envelope approved. And, so now it's just pink instead of green, but I did have people come to my office this election. They said they saw on social media that I was destroying all the envelopes that had the pink stripe. So although we were closed, I allowed them to come in and I took them into my office, showed them all the ballots we had there throughout the whole office. They all had pink. And they were just like, well, that's not what we were told. And, social media was very hard on us this election, and I don't imagine it's going to get any better. So since we have this envelope up, why don't we go into some information on this envelope that I was going to talk to you about. You can see possibly that I whited some stuff out because I whited the voter's name out. This is from a past election. On this envelope has a lot of good information. Through the system, and we have a vendor that puts our ballot packets together that prints these addresses on the envelopes directly for us. We create the file in-house and we send them to him. This barcode that you see across there above the names, that is the barcode that we scan in when we do signature verification. It identifies the voter's ID number. If that barcode is destroyed, let's say, sometimes we get what I call postal skid marks, where their machine kind of must be a rubber belt or something, skids across that. That doesn't do anything to the ballot, makes it a little more inconvenient to us. So if that barcode is not readable by our scanners, then we have the number that is right under the label, the 169702435. That is the ID number for this ballot packet. The number on the left-hand side is a voter registration, your ID number. The wording original tells me which ballot packet this is for the voter. Voters can be issued multiple ballots. All of the first labels that I run are originals. If I happen to get, after we pull our labels approximately 1 month before we mail them. So let's just say a week later, we get an update from DMV. We update that record, and by statute, we have to issue that voter a new ballot. The wording on that new ballot would say reissue or replacement. It would not say original. When that is done inside the system, then it identifies which ballot is active. So I'm going to show you, this is somebody's ballot packet from the November election. I looked up someone that got multiple ballots. So it shows us the ballot ID for each packet, tells which ballot is active, and you can never change it where both of these say yes. It will not allow you. You can see one ballot was returned and accepted, the other ballot was not. So we can tell which one was first issued, which one was second, where they went. We can, the next column will say the party. They'll tell us which ballot styles, and as you can see, their precinct changed, so their ballot style changed. Then it even tells us the stage. It was the original ballot, and it came back to us as undeliverable. It tells us what date. It tells us which batch number we scanned it in and who did it, which DLH is me. And I updated the voter. So I updated the voter to this new address. A reissue ballot was sent out. And then it shows that it was validated on 10/22. And it tells who scanned it in and whose signature verified. I know who those initials stand for, and I know which batch it was in. So that's just a small sample of the information that's available in our voter registration system. We can pull up a voter when they call, and we can instantly tell exactly what's going on with their record and their ballot packets. If they already have a ballot that came back and it says that voted, and they say, well, I didn't vote, you need to send me a ballot, the system will not even allow you to create a label to send them a ballot. So, you know, we just say, I'm sorry, we received your ballot packet at this date, and, you know, do whatever we needed to do. But once, you know, we review the record very thoroughly before we issue multiple ballots. And again, only one ballot is active ever in the system. So if we were to mail a ballot to a deceased voter, maybe they died after we mailed the ballot out, and then we got the death list. We also watched the obituaries in the papers. As soon as we cancel them because they're deceased, their ballot is no longer active. So even if someone within their household decides, oh, I think I'll just vote that, it's going to come back. We're going to be alerted that that ballot is no longer active, and then we would follow up with the Secretary of State's office for voter fraud.
I have a question. I'd like to know how, of those 48,000 approximate voters, how many use the drop-off system for their ballots, and how many use the U.S. Post Office?
Okay, I didn't look up a lot of statistics, but I'm just going to give you some from 2020, okay?
Okay.
So for the 2020 primary election, people were ecstatic over the prepaid postage. That's what they've been wanting. They were very happy. 67% of the ballots we received back came through the mail, and only 32% through the ballot box. Okay. People were very happy with the process. They trusted the process. They didn't question us at all. As soon as we went to prepaid postage, January of 2020, I happened to be the first county that used the prepaid business reply mail, because I was the first county to have an election. And we tracked the numbers. I don't have them in front of me, but within 2 days of the people mailing them, 90% of the ballots we received back within 2 days of the people mailing it. I had kept numbers for the state. They wanted to know what I thought of the postmarks and how great the post office worked for us. Unbelievable. I mean, okay, it is a business reply permit, but the post office for elections, you know, we're special. I mean, that's all there is to it. And they handle those as first-class mail. We don't get charged first-class mail rate, but they are handled as first-class mail. Then we move to the 2020 general. Social media went crazy, and our phones went crazy. A lot of negative about the post office. I mean, I handled many hundreds of phone calls about it, emails about it. And so even though I even put something on our website stating from the post office, you know, things were going to go good and everything else, we dropped 25% by mail, 74% by Dropbox. You know, I don't know whether you call it news or social media. You know, there was just a lot of negative, and I don't do Facebook or any social media actually, but people brought it into me, showed me things that was going on, so I could prepare my staff for the phone calls that we were going to be flooded with, which we were. So, you know, I mean, I can't tell you how much I trust the post office. They are there for us and for you and the voters. And they're going to do the best job possibly they can. I see no delay in their delivery of voted ballots back to me. There was no delay in delivering my ballot packets to the voters. The process has worked smoothly for 21 years, or this year, I think it's 22 years. I worked here before we did vote by mail. The process is just so defined in Oregon. I'm not saying it is for every state, and I did feel for those elections officials that had to try to do a switch over, because there is a lot of organization there. But just because certain things were happening in other states, it did not affect Oregon. Oregon, we had a very smooth election and a good turnout. It ended up with 78% voter turnout for this last November election. Vote by mail, if you do it and mail your ballots, it does allow us to process the ballots quicker with less staff. So again, you know, I hate to be about finances, but it does matter to our county. And so the more, you know, I've worked since like 95, and Extra Help came in and did a lot of the processes. I don't do that same anymore. I use as less staff as possible, and I use my full-time staff. That's what we're being paid to do, and we're going to work as hard as we can, and we're going to get it done. I do bring in temporary staff, board workers, but over the years, I've organized it so well that, plus technology has changed, you know, and the system we have is remarkable. And I'd welcome anybody that wants to come here and observe the process, even if there's not an election going on, just to come and hear about it, kind of look at some of this stuff and see it. It's an amazing process. But we had some ballot security funds that was supplied through the state. It came from federal funds. And I used, rough estimate is $20,000 to buy 5 ballot boxes. I'm working with all the cities except Coos Bay, because Coos Bay already has theirs. I bought the ballot boxes. They're identical to Coos Bay's because I want everybody to recognize one box. I mean, the one in front of my courthouse steps are different, but that's okay. But all the other cities will have their own ballot box that will be 24/7. Some of them I cannot make drive up. The cities and the areas are just not set up for that. You know, Powers is not going to have a drive up box. Lakeside will not have a drive up box. You'll have to get out of your car, walk to the box and drop it off. Bandon, I'm still working on a location. We're trying very hard to get a drive-up location in Bandon. I'm also working with the city of North Bend to get a drive-up location. Myrtle Point will not be a drive-up either. Yes.
Is there any difference for you whether a ballot comes in Dropbox versus mail? Does that make any difference to you in processing the ballots?
Not in processing, but for the state, we have to identify where each and every ballot comes in. So we do not mix ballot boxes. So,
Yes.
okay, so this is a report that we post to our website each and every day once our ballots have been mailed. You can go and pull up this document. It tells you exactly how many ballots we get from each location. Tells you up at the top how many was by mail. If we receive some by fax or email, other counties will get, you can drop your ballot off anywhere, any drop site within Oregon, regardless of what county you vote in. So other counties send us ballots. So we keep this, and we're required by law to keep that. So you can see where we get it, which ones are popular. That's kind of how we use to schedule our drop site couriers to do pickups, to know when to go get them. You know, so we were all prepared after the May election not to be picking up as much as we thought we would need to for the general, but then when things swung around, you know, elections is all about change. If you don't like change, you definitely do not want to be in the election world. So, you know, you needed to make some changes, and you needed to make them now. And so I realize I'm never going to make every voter happy. I'm going to make these boxes as secure as possible, and there is a security plan, you know, that go along with those. So we will get these all installed. Like I said, I'm working with the cities. I'm working with my maintenance crew. My road department had to put all the signs on there. In fact, I even have a picture of my new ballot boxes. There's one side of my new ballot box. The road department had to we have required signage that needs to be on it. So anyway, they're quite beautiful. They look just like the ones in the city of Coos Bay. I will say the one in Powers, Lakeside, and Myrtle Point are a smaller version. They're a 24-inch, where Bandon, Coos Bay, and North Bend is a 36-inch. We never once got that ballot box, that 36-inch ballot box, too full during the general election.